The day wasn't supposed to start with laughter, but it did. Sarah stood in the market square, her fingers trailing across the canvas propped on her easel, feeling the texture of dried paint beneath her fingertips. Around her, the whispers had already begun. Look at the blind girl pretending to paint. What a waste of good canvas. Who would buy art from someone who can't even see? She'd heard it all before, every single day for the past 3 years, since the fever took her sight but somehow left her with something else, something she still didn't fully understand. Her fingers moved across the canvas, guided by touch, by intuition, by something deeper than vision. She couldn't see the colors she mixed, couldn't see the faces she painted, but somehow, when her hands moved, they knew. They always knew. "Excuse me." The voice was soft, uncertain. Sarah turned her head toward the sound, a young woman by the lightness of her step. "Yes?" "I'd like to commission a portrait for my mother's birthday." A pause. "If you're truly able to paint without seeing." Sarah smiled gently. "Give me your hand." The woman hesitated, then placed her palm in Sarah's. Sarah held it for a long moment, her thumb brushing across the knuckles, feeling the warmth, the slight tremor, the calluses that spoke of hard work and gentle care. Images flooded her mind. Not visual. She couldn't remember what visual felt like anymore, but impressions, emotions, the essence of who this person was beneath their skin. "Your mother raised you alone," Sarah said quietly. "After your father passed, she worked with fabric, a seamstress. She has kind eyes that crinkle when she laughs, and she hums while she works. You want me to paint her the way she looked before the worry lines came, when she still believed in joy." The woman gasped. "How did you—" "I'll have it ready in 3 days," Sarah said simply. The woman left her payment, more than Sarah usually charged, and hurried away, glancing back twice as if she'd witnessed something impossible. But the crowd that remained wasn't impressed. They were suspicious. "Parlor tricks," someone muttered. She probably had someone tell her about the woman's mother. "Blind people can't paint. It's unnatural." Sarah gathered her supplies with practiced hands, her fingers finding each brush, each jar, each fold of canvas, with the precision of someone who'd learned to navigate a world of darkness. She didn't respond to the whispers. She never did. What was the point? They'd already decided what she was. A fraud, a curiosity, a blind Omega playing at art. She was packing the last of her paints when a different sound cut through the market, hoofbeats, many of them, and a sudden heavy silence that made even the mockery stop. "Clear the square," a commanding voice rang out. "The King's Guard is passing through." Sarah froze, her heart suddenly hammering. She'd heard of King Aldrich. Everyone had. The young alpha who'd taken the throne after his father's sudden death 2 years ago. They said he was just, fair, and impossibly burdened by a court full of vipers pretending to be advisors. They also said he trusted no one. The hoofbeats stopped nearby. Sarah heard the creak of leather, the jingle of reins, the shuffle of people bowing. "You there?" The voice was deep, authoritative, and Sarah's breath caught, directed at her. "Me?" she asked, turning toward the sound. "The painter. You're the blind Omega they speak of?" "I am, Your Majesty." A pause. Then footsteps approaching, heavy boots on cobblestone. "They say you paint portraits that capture more than appearance, that you see things others miss." Sarah's hands tightened on her walking stick. "I paint what I feel, Your Majesty. Some call it sight, others call it foolishness." "And what do you call it?" She considered the question. "Truth." Another pause, longer this time. Then, "I'm hosting a gathering in 3 days, the annual Moonlight Summit. Every noble house, every council member, every alpha of importance will be there. I want you to paint them." The market square erupted in whispers. "Your Majesty," a different voice interjected, oily, smooth, the kind of voice that made Sarah's skin crawl. "Surely you don't mean to trust something as important as official court portraits to a blind Omega. We have the finest artists in the kingdom." "I didn't ask for your opinion, Counselor Vane," the king said coldly. "I asked her." Sarah felt the weight of every eye on her. This was a test. Maybe a cruel one, maybe a genuine one, but it was an opportunity she couldn't refuse. "I'll do it," she said quietly, "on one condition." Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. "Name it." "I work alone. No one watches while I paint. No one questions my process. And when I'm finished, you display every portrait exactly as I've painted them, no matter what they show." "Dangerous terms," the king murmured. But something in his voice suggested he was intrigued. "Very well. My guards will escort you to the palace. You have 3 days." He turned to leave, then paused. "And Sarah, that is your name, yes?" "Yes, Your Majesty. Don't make me regret this." If you're captivated by Sarah's gift, subscribe now, because what she's about to reveal will shake an entire kingdom. The truth is just beginning to surface. The palace was overwhelming. Even without sight, Sarah could feel it. The vastness of the halls, the weight of stone and history, the whispers of servants who didn't know whether to help her or avoid her. She was given a studio in the West Wing, a room filled with natural light she couldn't see but could feel warming her skin. Canvases were stacked against the walls. Paints, more than she'd ever owned, lined the shelves. "The summit begins tomorrow evening," a guard informed her. "You'll paint the attendees during the gathering itself. His Majesty wants fresh portraits, not posed sessions." Sarah nodded. She preferred it that way. Posed subjects lied with their bodies. But in unguarded moments, in the way they held themselves when they thought no one was watching, that's where truth lived. The next evening, she was led into the grand ballroom. Music played. Voices rose and fell in practiced pleasantries. The air smelled of wine, perfume, and something else. Ambition, maybe, or fear. Sarah set up her easel in the corner, her fingers arranging brushes by touch, mixing paints by texture and scent. She'd learned to identify colors by their weight, their consistency. "Begin whenever you're ready," the king's voice said from somewhere across the room. Sarah took a breath and reached out with that other sense, the one that had awakened when darkness took her vision. She worked for hours, calling subjects to her one by one, touching their hands, feeling their essence, and translating it onto canvas with movements that seemed to come from somewhere beyond herself. No one spoke while she worked. Even the music seemed to quiet. By midnight, she'd completed 12 portraits. "Display them," she said finally, exhaustion making her voice rough. Servants moved forward, hanging each canvas on the prepared gallery wall. And then, the room fell silent. Because these weren't normal portraits. The vain duchess who everyone praised for her beauty. Sarah had painted her with hollow eyes and a smile that didn't reach her soul. The jovial merchant lord known for his generosity. Sarah had painted shadows around his hands, darkness creeping from his fingertips like poison. The quiet scholar everyone dismissed. Sarah had painted him surrounded by light, his eyes holding wisdom that no one had bothered to see. One by one, the portraits revealed what Sarah had felt. Not appearances, not performances, but the truth beneath skin and smile and status. "This is an outrage," someone sputtered. "She's made a mockery of us." "Your Majesty, this blind Omega has insulted your entire court." But King Aldrich was silent. He moved slowly along the gallery wall, studying each portrait with an intensity that made the room hold its breath. He stopped in front of one canvas, the last one Sarah had painted. "Counselor Vane," the king said quietly, "come here." The oily-voiced man who'd objected to Sarah in the market approached. "Yes, Your Majesty?" "Explain this." Sarah couldn't see what she'd painted, but she remembered the feeling when she touched Vane's hand. Rot, betrayal, a hunger that consumed everything it touched. She'd painted him with a serpent coiled around his throat, its fangs sunk deep into his own heart. And in his hands, a crown, not being offered, being stolen. "This is absurd," Vane stammered. "The girl is clearly delusional. Guards, search Counselor Vane's chambers, now." "Your Majesty, this is—" "Do you refuse?" The silence was damning. Within the hour, they'd found everything. Letters to the king's enemies, plans to poison the royal bloodline, a coup organized for the next new moon. Vane had been the architect of the king's father's sudden death. All of it hidden behind a mask of loyalty that everyone except a blind Omega who painted truth, had believed. King Aldrich crossed the room to where Sarah sat, exhausted, at her easel. "How?" he asked simply. "I don't see faces," Sarah said quietly. "I see souls, and souls don't know how to lie." The king was silent for a long moment. "What do you see when you look at me?" Sarah hesitated, then reached out her hand. Aldrich took it. The moment their skin touched, Sarah gasped. Because what she felt wasn't what she expected. Not a king, not power or authority or the cold weight of a crown. Just a man, exhausted, grieving, terrified of failing the people who depended on him. Desperately, achingly lonely. "You're tired," she whispered. "So tired of being strong, of never knowing who to trust. You carry your father's death like a weight on your chest, and you blame yourself for not seeing the betrayal before it killed him." She felt his hand tremble in hers. "You're not the cold king they think you are." She continued softly. "You're kind. You want to do right. But you're afraid that kindness is weakness, so you hide it behind authority." "And how do I know who to trust?" Sarah smiled slightly. "You ask the blind Omega who sees souls." Something shifted in the air between them, a connection forming. "Paint me," the king said suddenly. "Show me what you see." When she finished, she heard the king's sharp intake of breath, and then, so softly she almost missed it. "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me." A week later, Sarah was named the royal portraitist, a position that had never existed before. The nobles hated it. They squirmed under her touch, knowing their secrets would be exposed. But the king insisted, and slowly the court began to change, because when people knew their truth would be seen, they became more careful about what truth they chose to embody. And Sarah became the most powerful person in court, not through strength or status, but through the one thing the kingdom desperately needed, the ability to see what was real. King Aldrich visited her studio often. At first he claimed it was for official business, but slowly the visits became longer, less formal. He'd sit in comfortable silence while she painted. He'd describe colors to her, not the way they looked, but the way they felt. "Why do you keep painting me?" he asked one evening. "Because you keep changing," Sarah said simply. "Every time I touch your hand, I feel something new, like you're remembering how to be yourself instead of just a king." "And what am I today?" She reached for his hand, and he gave it immediately, something he never did with anyone else. Sarah felt the warmth there, the steadiness, and something else that made her heart skip. "You're happy," she whispered. "Yes," Aldrich said quietly. "I am." "Why?" "Because for the first time in my life, someone sees me. All of me. Not my crown or my power or what I can give them. Just me." Sarah's hands trembled. "Aldrich, I know you can't see my face," he interrupted gently, "but can you feel this?" He lifted her hand to his chest, pressing her palm against his racing heart. "Yes," she breathed. "Then you know what you are to me, what you've been since the moment you agreed to paint truth instead of lies." "I'm just a blind Omega," Sarah whispered. "No, you're the woman who sees more than anyone in this kingdom. You're the one who saved my life, who showed me that truth is worth more than flattery." His hand cupped her face with infinite gentleness. I'm asking you, Sarah, not as a king to a subject, but as a man who's never felt less alone than when he's with you. Asking me what? To paint one more portrait of us together so everyone can see the truth I've been hiding. And what truth is that? That I love you. That the blind Omega who paints souls has captured mine completely. Sarah's hands found his face, tracing the features she couldn't see with eyes but knew with touch. You're beautiful, she whispered. You can't see me. I don't need to. I feel you, and you're beautiful. When he kissed her, it tasted like truth, like two people who'd spent their lives being invisible, finally being witnessed by the one person who mattered. The portrait she painted that night showed two figures standing together, their souls intertwined with threads of gold and light. One wore a crown, the other held a brush. But in the painting, you couldn't tell which was the king and which was the Omega, because in truth, they were simply two people who'd learned that being seen was the greatest gift you could give someone. The kingdom learned to trust the blind Omega who painted truth. But Aldrich learned something deeper, that sometimes the greatest vision comes from people who've learned to see with something other than their eyes. You've just witnessed a story about seeing what truly matters. Ready for more tales where the overlooked become extraordinary? Subscribe to Alpha Moon Tales, where every story reminds you that your gifts are exactly what the world needs. Your journey is just beginning.